3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. A very warm welcome from all of us here to all of you wherever you're viewing, whether it's on Sky, Channel 752, Facebook or Twitter. We welcome all of you tonight and we're really looking forward for you to join us in the conversation. We can do so by having you dial in directly to the studio, and you can call in on 01924231083. Please do ask the bill payer's permission, as standard network rates do apply. However, you can also use the other service, which is free, and you can message us even anonymously on our WhatsApp number, and that number is 075-858-35150. The numbers are going to be remaining throughout the episode, so please do take your time, get your questions in, any of your comments. We're going to be discussing what to look for when you are actually searching for a spouse. Yes, we have this question that has come up again and again, but we have different people from different walks of life, different professions who are going to give their ideas. And we're going to constantly talk about this so that we can give you the best information so that you can look for your spouse, inshallah. We have a wonderful guest all the way from Canada with me tonight. Please do welcome her so that she can actually have the space to discuss this topic with myself. And we have Afnan Dahbour. Salam alaikum, Afnan.
Walaikum assalam. Hi, how are you?
I am so excited to have you with me tonight. It is really, really amazing to have you stream all the way from Canada and to share your insights. I'm really, really looking forward to this topic because I know you deal with things from a different angle and you bring in so much insight to the content, which I haven't actually seen before. So I'm really excited to share. But before we do, I'd like to learn a little bit about yourself and for you to share that with the audience tonight. Tell us, who is Afnan and what do you do?
Okay, well, I'm the creator of Dahbour Counseling, and I'm a coach, a relationship coach, and as well as a relationship counselor. I usually talk about relationships, but also I put my own twerk to it, which is the Islamic part of it and why it's so important to look for certain areas in a spouse, relating it to Islam. So not just basic relationships as well as Islam in it.
Right, I love that. And I think it's really important, especially nowadays when we are looking for someone, we always talk about, we want someone who is religious, we want someone who is God-fearing. Is there a difference between someone who is religious and God-fearing? I mean, there are so many definitions and terminologies. And I think even when we, use the term someone religious, it's so wide. How do you come across explaining that to a person, the details of trying to define this terminology?
Well, the thing is, I've realized about a lot of people, they kind of misunderstand what religious and God-fearing is, right? So people think that if a man prays or a woman prays and reads Quran and fasts, then they're religious, they're God-fearing, right? And that's actually not ultimately correct for one reason, because just because somebody prays and fasts doesn't make them religious and God-fearing, because that is literally the basic thing as being a Muslim. What makes somebody God-fearing is, for example, I wouldn't do someone wrong. Why? Because I fear Allah, not because I fear what you're going to do to me. I would not rob the poor. I wouldn't even rob anyone. Why? Because I fear Allah, right? So that's more of what people should be looking at. And I feel like to detect that, you could kind of ask questions when you're trying to get to know someone, especially in marriage. For example, oh, what do you think about a woman wearing a certain thing, right? Not so you could see if he's controlling or not. It's more if a guy actually fears Allah, they wouldn't want their wife to wear certain outfits, right? So if a guy comes and says I'm religious, but you know what, I'm open-minded and certain things are like, you could do that or whatever, but if it contradicts Islam, then are you really God-fearing, if that makes sense?
Do you not think there's certain levels that people will actually have when they are through that journey? For example, people look at, praying. People can say, well, I pray maybe not 5 times, but I'm trying, or maybe I don't pray on time. So, where do we cross that line to even try and figure that out? Even if we're going to ask the right questions, how do we judge that is for us? Because it's very difficult to actually understand where that person is and what they're doing, and also assume that they are on the right track or not.
Right. Well, obviously, time could tell, their actions could tell. So when you see somebody saying that I'm trying to pray, if you ultimately are talking to someone for marriage and you see, like, you'll hear, like, if you are on the phone with them or whatever the case may be, and they don't pray, they haven't been praying, they haven't been even trying, you could see it. It's not hard to actually see their actions. Like, what I always tell my clients, remove what people say and just look at what they do. What people say is not ultimately that they're lying. Sometimes it's what people want to be, right? Sometimes I could say, like, I'm a good person, I have a good heart, and I could really believe it, but my actions are what indicates if it's true or not. So if somebody says I'm trying to pray and you never ever hear them say I want to go pray, or you never even see them do wudu or whatever the case may be, you could see that that's not actually trying.
Yeah, that's very true. However, you know me, I'm going to be devil's advocate, and I'm going to obviously push, the boundaries here and ask you questions. Now, there's a lot of people that will even say at the end of the day, this person I found, this guy or girl, they're absolutely amazing. They have really good manners. They have really good morals. They don't cheat. They don't lie, but they don't pray. And they don't recognize the faith in that way, to that extreme. Because I hear a lot of youngsters, especially now, saying, we're going after these Muslim boys. And again, I'm quoting a lot of the things that are being said. This is not hearsay. I coach a lot of clients myself. And the new narrative is, I'm going to go for somebody even who is not religious, because the religious ones are not actually practicing. And the ones that I see most of the time that are not practicing their salah and their Quran, but they treat me better. They don't lie to me. They don't cheat on me. They're actually really good morally. How do you overcome that then, when that's the narrative nowadays?
Okay, well, that's not okay. So ultimately, I understand. They mean like somebody could be great but not be very religious.
Yes.
But my belief system is, how can somebody be that great if they don't fear God? If they're not scared of an afterlife and what's going to happen to them, and they do not actually feel like they owe God, our creator that literally created everything, thanking him by like praying and doing all those stuff, then how amazing could someone be? That's like, and people could change. You could make dua for that person. That person could actually just be a little lost. You can make dua. You could also talk to that person and see, because I know a lot of people, like, okay, they are a little bit away from God, but they come to me and they'll be like, okay, I do want to go closer to Allah. I am trying, right? So there is a thin line between that. But like, if somebody ultimately doesn't actually notice that they are doing a mistake by not doing the things that they should be towards Allah, it's a little bit like contradicting themselves, right? Like, if you're good to me, how could you not be good to your creator? Like, you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
No, beautiful, beautiful answer. The reason why I ask these questions, because, I really want people to understand, because I get this a lot myself. And obviously in my own sessions, I kind of do the same thing. But again, the only people that will be concerned about it is if they themselves actually value faith as well. Because it's not about just finding someone who's nice, but it's about the whole package and having that foundation. And that foundation is, like you say, as we claim and label ourselves to be Muslim and following in a particular way, then that should follow with regards to you being God-fearing and actually trying, even if you're not fully there. So I'm really happy that you've, actually addressed that, because again, we want to change that story that people tell themselves to give an excuse to be with somebody who they think is easier just because they have these sort of morals or characters and things like that, when actually it should be a lot more, because when you are entering into marriage, it's so much more than treatment. There's a lot of decisions that are coming. How do you actually guide your clients when it comes to struggling with faith generally?
Oh, that's a huge question about fate and qadar. Ultimately, I have a lot of my clients that come to me and they'll be like, God never wrote us for each other, right? And so ultimately, my first question is, did they willingly leave you? And most of the time, 99% of the time, yes, right? And I feel like a lot of people understand this, like, yes, in God's will, everything could happen. Even when we sin, God wouldn't want us to sin, but this life is a test, right? So ultimately, when you're with somebody and they choose not to want you or not to be with you, is it possible that it wasn't written for you? Of course, because God accepted it not to happen, right? But when it comes to marriage, I feel like people misunderstand. They think like there's like a soulmate. And soulmates are not necessarily actually spouses, right? We can create our soulmates by understanding each other, right? Because there is nothing in Islam that says that like soulmate has to be, yes, we were created in pairs, a man for a woman and a woman for a man. But if ultimately somebody, like God puts someone in your like presence, you could say yes or no, I don't want to marry them, right? So is it fate that it didn't work out? Well, yeah, because God accepted it not to work out, but it's still also a choice. And I feel like people kind of refuse to believe that. They're like, we were supposed to be soulmates, but we weren't, if that makes sense. Like,
No,
what if they're my soulmate, but it didn't work out?
No, absolutely.
And one way, yeah. And one way to know that someone's not,
I really think that we've touched on something really, really important, and we're going to actually continue this, but we are coming onto a break very shortly. And it gives us a really good introduction as to what we're here talking about, because a lot of the times when we're looking for a spouse, we have a tick list, and a lot of that is not necessarily going to get you that lifestyle and that real successful marriage and relationship. So we need to now learn the real techniques about life. And even if it comes from psychology or science, at the end of the day, we need to always have faith at the foundation to keep it strong. And that's what's really important. So we need to look within ourselves. And inshallah, with the rest of the conversation, we're going to be talking and divulging much more into this, as Afnan is going to give us some more tips and strategies. We will be coming back very shortly, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm having a beautiful conversation with my lovely guest all the way from Canada, Afnan, and she's basically giving us some strategies and tips from her professional counseling, sessions that she usually handles and deals with many clients with a lot of issues and challenges regarding looking for a spouse. As we know, we're trying to talk about this in order for us to have better relationships and in accordance with regards to our faith. Now, when we're looking for a spouse, it's very, very difficult, and it's getting more and more challenging as we are entering into this day and age. Afnan, what do you think about, living in the West and having the issues of different values and that being a challenge with, a lot of people generally? It doesn't mean that you have to be only young and challenged. I think a lot of people that have come even from abroad at an older age, or they're having their second relationships, or even while they're in a relationship, living in the West, obviously you being in Canada and me being in the UK, we have similar issues, having different values of Islam. And then we've got the Western values, and we're trying to, keep our identity, but also respect where we are. What is the kind of issues that your clients come to you with nowadays, which maybe might be shocking or different because of the difference in values?
Well, that's a very good question, especially like on my website, Dahbour Counseling, when people book with me. The biggest issue that I actually hear, it's like a lot of, for example, a woman would be like, I want him to be more open-minded. And I'll be like, what does open-minded mean? Oh, like I want to dress in a specific way. And I feel like that clashes a little bit because Islamically, a man actually can't be okay because he would be considered as a dayyut, for example. Or then a man, he'll be like, I want her to be open-minded. I'll be like, what do you mean open-minded? I want her to allow me to have girlfriends. So I feel like, especially the generation, they're confusing Islam and then they're trying to like use modern Muslim. There is no such thing as modern Muslim. Islam is Islam, not changed. It cannot be changed wherever you are. I'm not going to say it's not harder to deal with it in Western countries because you also want to fit society, you want to be the same, and then you want to also hold your religion. So it does clash a little bit, but I feel like if you actually just understand that Islam is Islam wherever you go, you can kind of avoid that issue.
No, definitely. And actually living in the West, myself in the UK, usually the majority of the countries, whether it's in Europe or even, in North America, wherever it may be, their value system really is about allowing the differences of different religion. So if we actually knew their value, it's not about just, following them. It's respecting and acknowledging it, but still keeping our own. And I think people need to understand that. So it's not about, mimicking anyone. It's about really holding your own, which I think is really important. The other thing I know you spoke about before, I think I must have seen it in one of your TikTok videos. Please do follow her. She's amazing on there. And, some really, really quick, some advice and guidance, which, really captured me to begin with as well myself when I was searching for the next guest. When it comes to nowadays, we have this terminology of manifestation. And I know when you're studying psychology and when you're reading and learning about it, a lot of the times people can get confused about what it means. Is it really something that we can do even as Muslim? Are we able to manifest? Can we actually, bring our spouse into life just by, believing, thinking and feeling? So talk to me about that, because I know you actually deal with this a lot. So I'd love to hear your sort of, thoughts on this.
Well, the thing with manifestation, not only is it like actually effective, even Islamically, what people don't understand, it is required. And proof of that is that when you make a dua, for example, right? What is literally the terms of making a dua for it to come true? And we all know that dua changes destiny, changes qadar. That's how effective dua is, right? And the first main thing of making it come true is you actually have to believe in it. You have to believe that God is going to give it to you. And it's not just you saying it. No, every inch in your body has to actually believe it, right? So with manifestation, what happens here is it's not that you believe that. A lot of people think that you believe the world is going to give it to you. No, it's that Allah is going to give it to you. You have so much faith that Allah is going to give it to you. But why is manifestation so effective? It's because when you manifest, you don't only imagine, it's not actually an imaginary, it becomes as if it's a memory. You attach smells to it, you attach like your real feelings to it, right? And even with like on my website, like this package especially, like it worked with, so far, alhamdulillah, everybody that actually booked it, it worked. Why? Because manifesting is just believing, right? And I also like in this packages, I use hypnotherapy. And hypnotherapy, what it does is I just speak to to your subconscious, right? Mm-hmm. So what that does is it calms you down and it makes you really believe it. That's all it is. And then after that, you pray 2 prayers tahajjud, you rely on Allah, you make dua for Allah. So everything goes back to Allah. Inshallah, I do always suggest to my clients not to manifest a certain person, to be honest, just to manifest like the marriage itself, the success itself. I think that's very important because there's still a chance it's not going to happen because it's not good for you. We're still putting it in Allah's hands. But does it work? Yes, manifestation works. And take it from me and everybody that I've worked with, alhamdulillah, mashallah, like it is a very successful thing. And that's because Allah said it is. Allah said, ask and I shall give. Like Allah said it is. So who are we to say that it's not going to work?
Absolutely. No, I love that. I think it's really powerful tool and strategy. And I think we need to talk about this a lot more. It's not about just, writing down a wish list and, thinking. And I know people don't understand the way in which their brain works. And we do have this negative talk all the time. But when you put your trust in your faith and especially in your creator, then absolutely we need to expect what is, given to us. A lot of the times we're like, we shouldn't expect. But I remember listening to a scholar saying the only thing that you should really expect is when you make dua, that you should trust that that is going to be given to you. So, it's a very powerful, powerful strategy. Now, if someone is struggling because they have maybe been let down so many times, you get a lot of men and women, they have gone to a certain age and stage where they've tried again and again. They have had rejection after rejection, or just bad luck after another. It's not nice to say bad luck. I just think we use that word even in a wrong way. I think it's just different challenges which allows us to delay certain things. And obviously, again, for the reason, how do you bring back that person's hope? Because it's very easy for someone new who's just trying, who's just come out of maybe university, but say someone who's, had a bad marriage and trying again, or after so many years and have not been married, say now, especially women, we're finding them over 30 and still not getting that marriage. And then I myself see a lot of women really now trying to accept the fact that, there is going to be no one for me. So what do we do in that situation? What are the steps and stages that maybe you can share a little bit of tools and strategies so that whoever's watching, they may be able to take away some practical tips right here, right now?
Okay. Well, the number one thing, ultimately you have to do if you speak to a counselor or you speak to a coach, myself, for example, the main thing we are going to look for first is, how was your childhood? What is the trauma triggers? How do you value yourself? What is your limits? Okay. Are you a people pleaser? Do you have an issue by attracting the wrong people? Are you pushing people away? What are you telling yourself, right? Because what are you telling yourself actually is one of the biggest things. Because I've realized a lot of my clients, like you just said, they say, okay, I'm just going to be single. Then yes, you are, right? Mm-hmm. I ultimately believe that whatever you convince yourself becomes your reality, right? Even with science, if you ever, let me ask you this. If you ever bought a car, right? You never noticed that car before, but the minute you have that car, what happens?
You always see it. You always see it. It's always in front of you. Yes.
Right. Why do you always see it? It's not because now, suddenly everybody bought that car. It is because your brain highlights what you tell it and what you have in your life. So if you ultimately keep telling yourself, I'm not pretty, I'm not good, I'm not going to find anyone, I always find toxic people, I will assure you that that is all you're going to get. Self-talk is one of the most important things in life. Even in Islam, you know what's worse? Who's our biggest enemy? Ourselves. Al-nafs, which is ourselves, right? Even bigger than the devil. Why? When the shaitan tells you to do something bad, you can ultimately say A'udhu billah min shaitan rajim and they go away. They're weak. But the nafs, which is yourself, when you talk to yourself, you can't just say A'udhu billah min shaitan rajim and it goes away. No, because you're literally the one that is giving yourself that bad talk. How can you get rid of it? By changing your thoughts, by aligning your thoughts with what you want your reality to be. Even the biggest example, I had two clients. I had one client that she always thought since she's young, she's going to marry a doctor. Okay. And this woman married a doctor. She's like, I didn't know it was manifesting. And I had another client that when she was young, she's like, Afnan, I always watched Turkish shows and I thought my parents are going to force me to get married and I'm going to go through an Indian movie, like a Bollywood movie. You know what I mean? She's like, Afnan, what's the odds of that? She's like, nothing. She's like, it never happened to any of my siblings, but it happened to me. Why? Because she was manifesting it. Since she was a kid, she literally imagined it, believed it because of all the movies she was watching, and it happened. And that shows you that anything you actually ultimately believe with your whole core and soul will come true. That's why manifestation is that important. And that's why, when I use hypnotherapy, it helps a lot more too, because your subconscious starts believing it, and it aligns with it exactly. So yeah, you have to change your belief system. That's the main thing.
Absolutely. I think what you've said there again, and you've highlighted very strongly, is so important. At the end of the day, we are humans. We need to understand our mind, our body, how it works. And we have a lot more power than you realize. And especially with us, with our faith, using our power with belief and understanding how the certain rituals which is recommended to us, like dua and salah and praying certain things at certain times, they all work. It really does. And if you have that, and especially if you have a coach to guide you like Afnan, I think, you know what, you'll be absolutely way ahead of yourself. But we need to definitely make sure that we understand how this works and how the power is within us. The universe is within us. That's what it said. Now we are coming again into another break, and we will see you in a few moments where we will be talking much more to Afnan all the way from Canada. Take care.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. Again, we are having a conversation with regards to what to look for in your spouse, your potential spouse. It doesn't matter whether it's the first time or second, third, whichever it may be, or even if you are already in a relationship, things do change, and you yourself change, and maybe you can identify certain things in your relationship to make it more fulfilling, make it more rewarding, inshallah, with this conversation. Afnan, before the break, or even at the very beginning, we were talking about the practical ways of looking at someone who is religious. Now, we do have a judgment generally by the outward appearance, and we think, well, that person's not religious. They, for example, women, they're not wearing hijab, so they're not religious. And I personally know for a fact there's a lot of women, especially, I'm talking about women because, that's what we look at when they're wearing and dressed in a particular way, that may not be covered on their head, but they have all of the other aspects that is, in line with faith. Because there is something that, a lot of men will say, well, I don't want her unless she's wearing hijab, and, she needs to wear this unless they get married. That is something that happens a lot. Or even the opposite. I don't want her to wear the hijab because at the end of the day, it's not in line with, me going out and being free in the West. And, I've heard both sides. So how do you actually address this kind of issue in your line of work?
Well, the first thing is when somebody says that I want a woman with hijab or I want a woman without hijab, that's fully up to you. But you're not allowed to actually indicate whether a person wears hijab or not, because the only thing a woman wears, the only reason a woman wears it should be for God. Yes, I'm not going to say that people don't judge based on your appearance, because that's the only thing we could judge based on, right? So I can't go and be like, okay, you can't judge on appearance, because nobody knows what's inside of you except Allah. So yeah, people do have vague judgments on appearance. Would the hijab completely justify that just because she doesn't wear it so she's not religious? No, because not wearing the hijab could just ultimately be, okay, she's lacking. She has she's, how do you explain this? She's sinning, right? But she's a mistake, and she's doing a mistake, and she's human, right? Because all of us do mistakes, and all of us, you know what I mean, have our burdens, So if you judge someone based on wearing the hijab or not, that makes someone a non-fearing person, they don't fear God, then honestly there's something wrong with your judgment, and you should be more intelligent and kind of think deeper than that. But it's completely up to you. If you don't want to marry someone that doesn't wear hijab, that's fine. And if you want to marry someone that doesn't wear the hijab, whatever you want in that case scenario is up to you. But if you want to talk about religion basis, a person that doesn't wear hijab is allowed to speak about Islam. There's nothing that indicates otherwise, right? Is she flawed? Yeah, she's flawed, but that still does not remove the fact that she could still be good in other areas.
I love that. I think it's a really important thing, and I think you've answered it really well, actually, because I think that, you know, a lot of people do struggle, and especially for women who have worn it and taken it off. It's like, oh, it's my journey, and it's, you know, it's something that I'm happy. But you've actually stated something which is really correct, is that I am flawed and I am trying. Just like how it's just unfortunate that people can see it. Right? There's so much other sins that go on where people, for example, don't pray 5 times, or they don't pray on time, or they don't fast, or they don't do so many other things. Well, we don't see it, so we can't judge it. But with women, unfortunately, it's the one thing that is seen, and it's judged very, very harshly. And you're absolutely correct. It does not define them completely, but to admit that, yeah, I should be doing it. It is something which is recommended, and I will, and it is something that I, you know, obligatory, and I will take those steps to do that in my time, because again, it's not for you or anyone else, it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think it's an honest conversation to have. And it's something to sort of say that, you know, oh, it's just me and I'm happy. No, we're not doing that. We're actually owning it. But at the same time, the judgments needs to be a little bit more empathetic and compassionate, just like it would for a man that you don't know, or a woman that you don't know, who is may not or may be praying, but you just can't see it. So I think it's a very important issue that we need to discuss, because when we are looking for your spouse, we need to look much deeper and beyond. And like you said, those questions are very, very important. Now, they might not just be where there's couples that are actually finding that they are religious or not. What about families? Because I know there are a lot of families nowadays, just because of culture, they don't allow their children to actually, for example, wear the scarf, or they don't think it's necessary. Or secondly, they follow culture more than they do religion. Or they even come from families that, you know, where they're not Muslim because they have reverted. So it's very, very difficult to even put judgment on that. Now, when there's a family that we'll find, especially in marriages where one is more religious than the other, usually we see that a lot. And, you know, it still works. So do you feel that there needs to be some sort of leeway when we're even judging each other? Because I have seen some very successful marriages over years where the mom's always praying and reading and bringing up the children, and the father has a different role, or the father's always taking the boys and the kids to the mosque, and the mom is not necessarily religious. I've seen both scenarios. So do you think that's still basically relevant to understand finding a spouse where even if you want religion as being part of something really important? Because I know a lot of youngsters will say, I'm not going to marry him because he does not fulfill that on my tick box. And I know you've answered this before, but it can still be successful. Do you not agree?
Okay, like it could and it couldn't, right? It depends on the way you view things, and it depends on your personality. This is where you actually really have to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if I'm a weak personality and I'm the kind of person that mirrors a lot more than someone else, then if I'm already weak in my religion and I go marry someone that's weaker, he's going to drag me. It's either one pushes the other up or one pushes the other down. When you're with somebody, ultimately, like whatever you say, however you think of yourself, you are going to take from that person's personality. That's common sense, and that's what happens, right? So if you're the kind of person, usually, like if you're the kind of person that has a weaker personality in the relationship, you're usually going to mirror more. So you need to ask yourself a simple question. If you are really if you care about religion, this is one thing you should be asking yourself. When I'm with that person, is this person going to get me closer to heaven? And if not, and I know that I can't, I need someone to push me up, then that is a red line that I wouldn't want to cross. And I wouldn't want to marry someone that does that. That's going to push me down, because I need the up push, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, it goes back to your personality, what you believe. There is people even to speak about it vaguely, like my father, when I was younger, he wasn't as religious as he became later, right? But I feel like ultimately, every time a Muslim person that actually believes in Allah, every time they grow, they realize that they're a step closer, you know what I mean, to be one day, God forbid, dying, right? We all are gonna die. So we do tend to get closer, right, to God. I feel like when you truly believe in Islam, regardless, you always get closer. I've seen that in a lot of, you know what I mean, in marriages where sometimes it kind of ruined the marriages down the line because, for example,
Yes.
he wasn't religious. He married a woman that was not that religious. He became so religious. She stayed the same. So it's either you grow together or you kind of grow apart, right? So you can't really, the thing is, you can't 100% know these things. But if two individuals really want each other and are willing to kind of work it out, I don't think there's an obstacle that can be worked out, except if it's like real, like for example, physical abuse that, and they can't stop, like things that ultimately are a red line even in Islam, right?
Yes. Yes.
But
No,
other than
no.
that, I feel like things could be worked out.
No, I think again you've given us a really good insight into that, and I love your angle and your perspective with regards to looking at yourself and your own personality, and also when you mentioned about if you're looking for somebody who's actually gonna lift you up or build you down, so you need to really work on yourself a lot more. I think the whole concept of this is when you're looking for a spouse, you've got to look within first and work on yourself first. And that's the takeaway that I'm getting right now, because I think that's when you're really going to find your match. Do you think it's difficult for the different genders to feel and think in this way when it comes to searching? Do you think that men and women, look at themselves and look at somebody else differently? Do you think men find like, oh, she's okay looking and she's got it basic, but women are more demanding nowadays? What do you feel?
I don't feel like either party, it's not about demanding. I feel like honestly the biggest thing that I'm realizing, even with me on social media, is that men are kind of like versing woman and woman versing men. I feel like that's the biggest problem we're having in this generation. A man and a woman are kind of fighting each other, and they're constantly trying to prove that one is more superior than the other. And they don't understand, I feel like the generation cannot understand that a man and a woman are different in amazing ways. We were made to be different because we were made for different roles to play to complete each other. We are not made to be like one another. That's the whole point, and that's a beautiful aspect of it. But I feel like people are literally like, men are more cheaters or women are like, they just want to fight, not noticing that literally we're fighting for the same thing, because in the end of the day, whether you like it or not, a man is made for a woman and a woman is made for a man. That's how Allah created us, and we all seek each other. So I feel like if we stop competing and we actually just understand that men and women have different roles to play, and we kind of try to understand, for example, a woman understanding that a man needs respect more than anything in a relationship, and a man understands that a woman needs emotions more than anything, and they actually both of them try to give it, I feel like a relationship would be not perfect, because nothing is perfect, but at least it's going to be perfect for them. They're going to be two adults trying.
I love that. I'm so glad I asked that question, because we do have the battles of the genders. And I think you're so right. We shouldn't be, versing each other. We should be collaborating and alliancing, and we should embrace the differences. And it doesn't mean anything about us being more or less or higher or lower. Like you said beautifully, better than myself, is that we have different roles and we need to learn that. And I think we have changed over time the roles of the women, which sometimes can bring out more of our masculine side, which may be good for business, may be good for, being out there as leaders, as we are now in different sort of, professions. But at the same time, when it comes to relationships, there is a different need that a man has and a woman has, which is very much in line with our gender and our role. So we're going to be discussing this in the last part of the show, which is coming soon as we are arriving into our next break, final break. Tune in a very short time. Take care. Bye.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We're here on the final part. It has gone so quickly, but please, if you've just joined us, do make sure that you take note, rewind the episode towards the end and listen from the beginning. We've given you some really good gems And all, of course, because we have our lovely guest all the way from Canada who is streaming from all the way there, telling us all about her stories. Now, Afnan, you are a lot on TikTok. What is the actual, comments and the kind of feedback that you get? Because, we were talking before the break with regards to the men versus the women. What do you see? Because I think we can learn a lot from it. And a lot of people complain about social media, but I learned from it, right? As to what's going on, what's happening in their mindset, what are the actual issues, the challenges, the complaints, because this is what we need to hear, even if it's not great, but then we understand what is happening in society, what is actually happening in society.
Honestly, the biggest comments that I'm getting in the worst comments is like, if I make a video from Islam that kind of talks about how we should treat a woman in a kind way, you see men going literally ballistic, like as if, and it would be something ridiculous. Like, for example, in Islam, if you abuse your wife, she could divorce you, right? She could ask for divorce. And men will literally be sitting there, okay, why don't you go wear a hijab? Or like, it's like, are you that serious? Like, you're talking about something that should be even common sense, and it's Islam, right? And then for women, if you say like, oh, a woman has to, for example, do certain things for her husband, you'll have them be like, oh, I don't have to do this. Like, I feel like people, like especially this generation, they're trying to change Islam. Islam will never be changed. And that's the beautiful thing about our religion, is that it hasn't changed and never will, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, I just wish that men and women truly like feel for one another, understand one another, rather than verse each other. Because the funny part is, we literally look for marriage. Ultimately, if you like it or not, we all want to find our special person. So the fact that you're sitting there and arguing as if we're against each other, but yet you go and you look for a man or you look for a woman, isn't that contradicting everything you're saying? So why don't you understand one another to actually create a happy life for each other, rather than you guys start fighting against each other? No, I'm better. No, I'm better. We're all equal. We're all equal.
No, you're definitely selling yourself short if you think we're all equal. Especially, I think, the fact that a lot of people are so defensive and against each other, especially the genders, they don't really understand their deen very well. And if they do, they're taking very much bits and pieces and interpreting it the way they want to use against someone in an argument, which is very easily done. That's why we have, extremists nowadays, right? So we need to be a lot more careful when we are speaking about faith. And if someone's saying something good, you don't necessarily need to, judge completely the person who's saying it, but just listen to what they are saying and use it if it applies. And if it doesn't apply, fair enough. I mean, I know, social media is a huge thing right now. Do you think it's actually damaging now because of what you've just said? Do you think that it's actually creating more chaos than it is education?
Of course. I'm the kind of person, look, I love education and I love educated people, but I also feel like the more things that you feed yourself when it comes even to education, you actually start even asking more and more and more. And sometimes you actually stray away from like the truth, right? Because not everything is book written. Like, you have a lot of women be like, oh, I'm a feminist because men don't respect women. And then men say I'm misogynistic because women don't respect men. But the truth is, this shouldn't happen. If we just be normal, follow the Quran, and actually understand that we're different in good ways and amazing ways, we'll be fine. Khalas. Like, there's no more to learn about misogynistic and feminists, and we don't need all of that. We do live in a day and age now that, alhamdulillah, things are pretty fair. Do I say they're perfectly fair? Probably not. But this is the world. You're never going to be 100%. You know what I mean? So I feel like, just, as I said, like, just take it easy, love each other, respect each other, try to understand where people are coming from. You know what I mean? Rather than just be like, oh, he's this because he's a man, or she's this because she's a woman.
No, I'm so glad we brought this up, because again, we're fighting each other all the time. And like you mentioned, we're fighting each other, yet we want to actually work towards being together. It's such a phenomenal So way of being. And honestly, you're not doing yourself any favors. Look, I know we're coming to the last part of the show. We still got 5 minutes left, but I don't want to leave it till the end. I really don't, because I think it's so important that people understand who you are and where to reach you. So before I forget, and we're going to talk a little bit more, but I want you to share your details. Like, how do people get hold of you, your website? Because I know your programs and whatever you do is so, so important. And obviously a lot of, success has come out of it. So people are probably dying, how do I get hold of her? How do I get hold of her? Now's your chance. Tell people, how do we get hold of you?
Okay, well, you get a hold of me on Dahbour Counseling, right? If you go and you search Dahbour Counseling on Google, you'll find it. And you can add me on TikTok, which is Afnan_Dahbour. But on my Insta, it's Afnan_DE because my other one got hacked. So make sure that you follow the Afnan_DEE on Instagram. So yeah, you could contact me there. If you guys want, like, for example, coaching to reach the person you want to be, or if you lack in self-love, you know what I mean? Or you need like to fix your relationship, or even pre-marriage counseling. I think it's very, like, a lot of my clients come for that, and it's very refreshing because they could kind of, you know what I mean, see how things might go in the future. And obviously, if you want to learn how to manifest through dua, and that's one of the best sellers, right? Because, like, it really does change your mindset, especially with hypnotherapy. A lot
Amazing.
of tears, but joyful tears.
Oh, wow. I'm so happy that I've asked you that before we end. But to be honest, when it comes to counseling, premarital counseling, do you feel that you have to already have your spouse, or do you think you can come into that on your own?
Look, I believe even in relationship counseling, even in fixing a marriage, you could do it by yourself and you could do it with the other opposite person. When it comes to pre-marriage though in particular, it is better to have the person with you because, like, it is based on you two, right? But if you want to, for example, like, relationship counsel by yourself, you could actually fix the relationship by yourself. And a lot of my clients didn't know this. And the reason to that is if you actually change the way you react to your spouse, you could actually change the whole dynamic of the relationship because it will force them to change the way they act with you, right? So if you change a certain thing about yourself, it could literally change the whole marriage. So yeah, you could do it by yourself, but pre-marriage in particular, it's a little bit complicated by yourself. It'd be better because we want to sit and kind of see what your guys' thoughts are and whatever. So it should be, but anything else should be fine alone.
Do you know, we have a lot of stigma also about getting help and getting counseling or even, coaching. A lot of people that, think if I'm going to go to that, that means I have an issue, I have a problem. How do you overcome that sort of stigma?
Honestly, I hear that a lot, but I feel like mental health is so important. Even in Islam, literally, you're not allowed to swear, you're not allowed to hurt other people's feelings. That's all goes under mental health, right? So it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that you kind of want to make sure that you're healthy. And it's very important to be mentally healthy, especially for your kids, for your family, for yourself. And I feel like you will never lose money when it comes to investing in mental health. Why? Because it's something that's going to be with you forever. It's something that's going to fix your life forever. And even me as a counselor, I still went to counseling before. I still do. You know what I mean? I don't think there's anything wrong with that because I always want to, like, develop in better ways. I always want to learn something new. I always want to strive. I always, like, you know what I mean? And I think it's kind of a misunderstanding when people, oh, I'm not sick to go. You're not actually. You're very intelligent because you actually want more help and you want to become as successful as possible. So
yeah, no, I love that. Definitely. It's definitely basically heightening your potential or keeping yourself up on top of your game. I think people need to look at it like that. I think it's really important that you've highlighted that. And again, if you are smart enough, then you really want someone to work with you to keep you on track or build you to get higher. Afnan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you today. It's been so refreshing. You are really, really a person that I would recommend. Honestly, it's been such a pleasure. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I want to make sure that, you have the final say. So please leave us with some final words before we end tonight.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. And if I could advise the youth of anything, take it easy. We're not against each other. We actually are made to love one another and try to be nice and humble. This world is already harsh as it is, and it's hard. Try to like be as nice as possible, seriously. And before you judge anyone, put yourself in their shoes. Try to understand where people are coming from, and and just take it easy. Life is easier than that.
Thank you so much. It's been so amazing. And please don't forget to follow Afnan on TikTok, especially Instagram, if you want to reach her for any further counseling and, relationship coaching, is Dahbour Counseling. Is that correct?
Dahbour Counseling, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really important that we understand that, because at the end of the day, we're here to serve. And we're here to give insight and real value. So again, I just want to say thank you to Afnan, my beautiful guest from all the way from Canada. And I hope that you've thoroughly enjoyed the show as much as I have. If not, please do rewind, watch back. And we only are here to serve you, to make sure that we have these different guests coming in every week to discuss different opportunities where you can actually learn something and gain some insight, some knowledge, that we can actually have more stronger units. And your unit is your home. Society is built on, the strength of the family home. And that is breaking, unfortunately, especially in our Muslim community. And we want to strengthen that. We want to build that, and we want to make sure that even in these challenging times, we're not going to use the excuse of this generation. We're not going to use the excuse of Western values, mixing with ours. Nothing of that. We're going to work together, and inshallah, we're going to build some really strong, amazing relationships, wonderful homes, and build the next generation in our Muslim community wherever you are. So it's no excuse. But thank you so much to my guest, Afnan. Thank you for everyone who has been watching, engaging. Inshallah, we will be back next week, same time, same place. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.